instance, discussions, and I think there are many examples of our county department heads who are making these kind of cost-effective decisions. Our DOT agency, we talked about the annual CSAC conference, and his determination is he's only going to attend the CSAC conference when it's in Northern California, not in Southern California, in an attempt to allocate his limited staff dollars for all, both employees and management staff, to be able to participate in various programs. We would like to institute the VTO policy effective immediately. We have had very, very limited interest so far from the HHS agency. I think it's a program that we absolutely need to offer, but it is something that, because of the difficult economic times that county employees find themselves in, I think last year you would have seen greater interest. This year is not as much interest because everybody is suffering through difficult economic times. So we will tighten up some of our hiring policies. We'll look again at what we're doing with hiring. We would like to come back to your board in January with a number of other initiatives. There's not a day goes by that I do not get a call from the Sheriff's Department that has different revenue enhancements that they're talking about. Part of what we don't get a chance to do is we don't have staff to go through and research and come up with those. It's not that the ideas are not there. The ideas are definitely interesting perspectives, and I think if the board wanted to move forward with some committee direction next year with a finance committee to specifically talk about revenue enhancements, I think we'd have a number of things to talk about, both from our department heads and from our employees, that I think we could do some things with. And finally, the issue of employee meetings, absolutely, that's on our list of subjects we're going to engage the county employees are. We have an extremely talented workforce here in Mendocino County. They have lots of good ideas, and it is our intent to look to our employees for suggestions in a format that's positive and not negative, where we can come to some possibilities of saving ourselves some money or perhaps reinventing the way we do business. So all of those things are on our list of things to do. I think you should be complimented. Your county department heads are actively engaged in trying to save money every day. It's just the magnitude of the problem has grown so big that the majority of our dollars that we spend are in our employee costs. And I think we have to take a look at it through our meet and confer process in a partnership with our labor groups, that how are we going to reduce down those labor costs that we have while we get through these difficult economic times. So that's the direction we intend to go with our office immediately, barring any direction from the board that you feel our actions are inappropriate.
Okay, we do have a motion before us to take as a group items 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, and 9, I believe was the motion. Is that correct? And a comment from the chair. As much as I hate to say this, the situation is much more dire, I believe, than what these items will provide for. I would ask the maker of the motion to modify his motion to allow for the discussion of MTO and or workforce reductions to take place at this time. I think it is that dire. I think it is that responsibility that we carry to take that into account. Saying that, what we haven't yet discussed and what we will next week is a possible privatization, of the solid waste situation in its entirety and the possible savings that would bring. So that's not really been discussed in depth because we're not there yet. It's next week's item. So that's another possibility. But I think if we don't open the door to allow for meet and confer for MTO and or the dreaded L word, layoffs, we are shirking our responsibility. And yeah, it's easier than hell for me to say that, having just 2 meetings left, and I'm counting every damn one of them. But it's also my fiduciary responsibility to take that up. So I bear the burden of being the bad guy in the room, but unless we allow for and direct staff to open up those discussions, I think we're just shirking our responsibilities. So I would ask the maker of the motion to at least allow that door to be open, and in doing so, it takes in some comments of SEIU to also provide maybe a better, different way for the employees to bring forward ideas. So that whole meet and confer process is a two-way street. It's not just a one-way street of us pointing fingers and telling you what has to be done. I cherish, as chair, my employees, and I expect them to have good ideas and be able to bring them forward. And we're going to be recognizing some of those cherished employees here very shortly. So we have to allow for that discussion to take place, and again, I ask for that modification of the motion.
You want to answer?
In response, yes.
In response, Mr. Chairman, if it's, your request is to look at both workforce reductions and MTO?
Yes.
If it's both of those, then I can go along with that. I do not support MTOs. That's my own decision. I think it's wrong, but I think if it's both of those aspects of it, I would make that clarification to the motion. If that.
And amend the motion.
And amend the motion if the second concurs.
To conclude mandatory time off and workforce reduction.
Both of those as options.
Yeah, I concur.
Second concurs? Okay. Supervisor Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and to the Chair's comment, I appreciate that you brought that forward, because I think that we absolutely need to have that discussion on the table. But I also feel, and you talked about shirking responsibility or not fully doing what we probably needed to do, and I understand your point on that, but I also feel that by excluding number 4, we are also doing that. I think any responsible body has got to look at both sides of the equation. So if this motion specifically doesn't include even a review or discussion of increases of fees and penalties and a review of that, I don't think we're doing our job either. So my sense about it is I can't support it unless we have that in there, because I think that's something the executive office brought forward. I'm not attached to any of the specifics that they talked about as only clearly potentials, but they also said other suggestions are encouraged from board members, departments, and bargaining units. And I would also offer the public to that as well. So I feel like we need to approach this in a comprehensive manner, and if we don't look at the revenue side, we're not doing that. So I would add that comment to the one you made.
Okay. Supervisor Colfax?
I think here that the CEO and staff have heard this discussion.